Luka versus Jokic. Who's more important and productive for their teams offensively? Swipa, my friend, you are going first, and your time will start when you start.
Yeah, well, first of all, just disclaimer. I know certain people don't like me talking about Jokic too much on the platform on the internet, but just going to spend some time doing that. I think Jokic has made the clear argument that in terms of offensive players, there's just nobody more valuable in the NBA. Even if you look at the last 4 seasons that he's been on this MVP run, Finals MVP run, they've had the best offense basically relative to the rest of the league when he's been on the court for most of these years. Every single year, Jokic has outperformed Luka in terms of the net rating, how good the team is offensively when he's on the court relative to Luka. And I think, some of this is also just the way the positions are laid out. Because Jokic is a center, he has access to a bevy of things that Luka just doesn't by the nature of how tall he is, how big he is, being a DHO screener, being a screener on a pick and roll, on the pop. And again, everybody remembers the 2023 NBA playoffs finals run, 30, 13, and 10, 63 true shooting, 44% from three, shot over 60% from two over the course of that run, and 80% from the free throw line. Jokic literally has everything in his package. His jump shot can come and go a little bit, but I think that's the thing. When you're a center at 7 feet tall, you just have the ability to affect the game from the inside out in ways that a guard or wing cannot. And to this day, there's no player that's been considered the passer in the league that Jokic is, because again, it doesn't matter. You cannot double team him, even though he's one of the best, if not the best scorer in the league, because he's going to find you off ball, corner, cutter, slasher, any way you want. So Jokic, clearly the better offensive player.
Jokic is clearly the better offensive player, Swiper says. Penn, I think you got this, man. Hey, I expect you to wash Swiper right now. So go ahead and do your thing. Round one, topic one. Talk to us.
Okay. Have you ever wondered how a country of 6.6 million people has produced the greatest tennis player of all time? You ever wonder how that same country produced a 3-time MVP and the best player in the NBA today? You ever wonder why those late 80s, early 90s Yugoslavian teams were so damn dominant that they had to damn near bomb the entire country to stop them from taking over the world? It's because basketball in Serbia is not clickbait. It's not content. It's not entertainment. It's a religion. So when the Serbian national team goes out, when Jokic and all these guys, they go out and they put their blood, guts, and glory on the line against the refs, against the world, against all odds, and they go and win a bronze, they didn't do that for Swiper. They did that for me. They did that for us. And they didn't do that so that I can come on here and talk about how Luka's better than Jokic for a little bit of money. That's crazy to me. Nikola Jokic grew up in a town that is 300 kilometers south of where my family is from. Basketball is serious to us. We don't fuck around with religion. So I'm going to teach Swiper the lesson that Kevin Durant's been trying to teach you about national pride and standing on business. My only hope, Swiper, is that you can do a better job of defending the greatest Serbian player in world history than I could have. Go ahead.
I definitely appreciate the fact that you're recognizing that Joker's a better offensive player. I just think it's not that Luka is bad offensively or much worse or anything like that. But again, I just think a guard. Now, Luka is a better on-ball creator than Joker, and I think that's why that's such an important conversation. I mean, we saw James Harden bending the NBA for about 10 straight years because of the fact that he can score off the dribble. He can beat you as a pull-up shooter, beat you at the spot-up shooter. Luka's very similar to that. Luka's also one of the best post guards in the league. But Jokic literally, as JJ Redick has talked about multiple times on First Take, he's literally the most efficient post-up player that we've had since we started tracking points per possession. Like there's nobody else that's been like him, and also on the volume. And again, I think it also says something that when you have a center that has a 41, 42, 44 assist percentage in the middle of your defense, it literally makes it to where it's impossible to deal with them on a consistent basis when he's surrounded by shooters. And again, that's why they went when they had everybody available. And Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon and KCP and Bruce Brown and Jeff Green and Christian Brown were healthy. They waltzed through the NBA because even if the Suns and even if Luka or other guards are able to really produce at a very high level offensively, the sustainability of the fact that Joker has a 65% advantage in that area between 3 to 6 feet because of a hook shot, because of the push shot. He has the most deadly floater in the NBA. So if you have a player you can't double and also can make a basket almost 70% of the time, yeah, it just makes him indomitable.
Penn, is back on you to argue what you are supposed to argue.
Okay. Go. No, we could take this moment to just let the silence run. It's cool. It's absolutely amazing.
Keep
Yo,
going,
man,
Penn.
bro, you don't get this many great athletes coming out of a country of 6.6 million without some serious national pride. I'll tell you something. I'll take this moment to just talk about this for a second. That I remember through most of the 90s, there was a lot of stuff that went on in Serbia. It's a lot of hard times for a lot of people. People were on the streets, couldn't get bread. Schools were getting bombed and all that stuff, right? So what I'm trying to say is all these athletes, they grew up trying to show the world, this is us. This is where we come from, and erasing all of that damage, right? So when all these athletes go on this world stage, when they go and become scientists, doctors, CEOs, basketball superstars, that's what they're doing. They're letting you know where they come from, and that's pride. That's national pride. Now, I'm never gonna go against Swipa because he covers one of my favorite players of all time. That's been one of my biggest agendas as a basketball analyst is always gonna be to elevate Jokic. I want Jokic to be seen as more than a stat stuffer.
That is the time, Penn. Woo! You was cooking right there. Swiper, round 3, baby. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I just want to take this time to congratulate Serbia on a hard-fought match versus the U.S. and then obviously winning the bronze. This will be Serbia's. They didn't get a chance to do this obviously in 21, but in 16 they got the silver medal. And I think a fun story from that. The reason that Bogey was doing the Melo sign at Melo so consistently was one because of 2016, but also Carmelo's been one of Bogey's favorite players for the last several years. So I think a lot of people got lost on that. Like, the U.S. is the gold standard. LeBron, Melo, Durant, Steph, they raised a generation of players everybody kind of idolizes. So definitely shout out Serbia for getting that bronze. I think that basketball is headed towards a real new era. Ron, we've had this discussion multiple times on the panel. Has the world caught up to the USA? And 1,000%, I just am looking at basketball as a whole and just like, look, man, like, Serbia was about 6 minutes from closing out USA game. And then you even had France putting on a matchup, but they would have had a better wing play from a couple of their players. As Wemby could have been better in spots. If their guards were better, or Frank would have been a little bit better. But they had some dudes that were really putting pressure on them consistently. So I'm excited for the future. I think Jokic is obviously the best player of this era. And I think Wemby is up next to be the best in the world. And, we might be 3 or 4 years away from that, Penn. I'm not sure how far away you are for that, but it's just a crazy place we're in the league. And right now where international is dominating like it is.
Swiper, that's the end of your round 3. Penn, put this dude in the casket. Finish it off. Your final debate. Talk to us.
Yeah, I wanna just shout out Luka Doncic. And, Luka's dad is Serbian, and I'm just gonna be real, like, I think Luka's a phenomenal player. I've been following him since the EuroLeague. I think what he's done so far in the NBA has been nothing short of legendary. He's so young to be this poised and this good. And, he's got an elite second option now in Kyrie Irving. It's vibing, it's good. He's growing up. Hopefully he can come back in better shape and really show the league what's business. He's one of the most dynamic offensive players I think I've seen in my lifetime. He's got a long way to go defensively. He's got a long way to go. And last year, congratulations to the Dallas Mavericks and representing the West the way that they did. I think that there's a true thing in basketball where you can never play the season you didn't prepare for, right? I don't know if the Mavericks expected to get to the finals But I hope they expect to get to the finals every year going forward with this core that they have with Derek Lively and all these guys. So, respect Luka as a passer, respect Luka as a scorer, respect him as, a heliocentric hub who does so much for his team. Hopefully he can get there with the conditioning and the defense. And, good luck to the Dallas Mavericks. Shout outs to all the, Dallas Mavericks fans out there. And, again, no disrespect to Luka. Love Luka very much, but I'm not gonna I don't think you could pay a Serb $5,000 to do this. Yeah.
Whoo! That was gas, y'all. Hey, that was gas. Put up the polls, run the time, and I'm not supposed to do this, but I just got to say this. Penn, you cooked his ass that round. The next topic that we have for you guys is Tony Parker versus Kyrie Irving. Who is the better sidekick? Swipa, you went first. So, Penn, on this topic, you're going to go first, my friend. Your time will start whenever you do.
Okay. Now I can cook. All right. So, Tony Parker gets a lot of love for his finals MVP. I want to let y'all know who these two players were in the finals games they did play. Kyrie Irving in 18 finals games, 25 points, 4.4 assists, 3.8 rebounds. Tony Parker in 29 finals games, 16 points, 4 assists, 2.4 rebounds. In the 2016 finals against a 73-win team, the Golden State Warriors, Kyrie Irving put up 27 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 47% shooting, over 40% from three, 94% from the line. What are we talking about here? So Kyrie Irving did more. Now, who did Tony Parker face? This is a little trivia for the chat. Who did Tony Parker face when he won that finals MVP? He faced LeBron James, Boobie Gibson, and the hapless Cavs. Bron before he was ready, Bron before he became the Bron that we saw during the Olympics. He wasn't ready, and they cooked him in 4 games. So what I'm trying to tell you is that Tony Parker's biggest career achievement, apart from the 4 rings that he won as not the second option in San Antonio, was that he won a finals MVP. It's literally all French fans can talk about. And I'm trying to tell you that Kyrie Irving did more against a much better team. And oh, by the way, he hit possibly the biggest or second biggest shot in NBA Finals history to give the Cavs their first title ever. Respect Kyrie Irving, man.
Swiper, round 2 or round 1. It's on you.
Yeah, I think that the way that you describe Tony Parker is very interesting. And I think if you're talking about a better overall sidekick, I don't really think there's much of a debate. And the reason is do you realize how healthy and how available Tony Parker was? Like, for 11 of his first 13 seasons, he played over 68 games over the course of that run, including 4 top 10 MVP finishes. So even if you're just going, because you just did NBA Finals, you're going across the regular season. Tony was one of the best creators in the NBA. He was one of the most consistent players in the NBA. He was one of the best transition players. So a lot of people talk about Tyrese Maxey. Well, who's the person they liken him to? Is Tony Parker. When it came to the playoffs multiple times, including by the time he got to a second year, he was able to elevate his game in meaningful ways and able to have really great performances. And so you bring up that sweep that they had in 2007 versus that team. But you also fail to forget he averaged 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists in that series. So he shot 57% from 3 on very limited volume, but he shot 57% from the field. And a lot of that was because they just didn't have an answer for him. So regardless of the competition, he was always able to perform at a high level. And again, including for 2012 and 2013 versus those Heat teams, it was Tony Parker, the one putting the team on his back to get those game-winning baskets. It was Tony Parker getting them going into half-court offense. That way they could set up Tim Duncan and Kawhi and them. Tony was the engine of that team offensively, and he was also a decent to average to good defender at times, depending on the context. Across the board, regular season to the playoffs, Tony cleared.
Back to you, Penn. Take us away.
Cleared is wild, but let me make another point. He's not the second option in San Antonio. Who was the second best player in San Antonio through their championships? Let's ask Basketball Reference. Manu Ginobili had a 47.8 value of replacement in 1,057 games. Parker played 197 more games and had a VORP just 30. Shout outs to VORP. Okay. Box Plus Minus says Ginobili had a career box plus minus of 5. You know who else had a career box plus minus of 5? Exactly. Dwayne Wade. So per 100 possessions, Manu scored more points, had more rebounds, more steals, got 5% better from three, had a higher true shooting percentage by 4. He just played fewer games and he didn't start. But why didn't he start? He started a bit, but why didn't he start through most of his career? So it was so that he could carry those second units, but he damn well closed. And we know that. I cannot believe that we are arguing that Kyrie Irving, one of the greatest sidekicks of all time, really has been to multiple finals now as a number 2 option to arguably both guys who are top 5 players in the NBA. I can't believe we're arguing that he is a worse sidekick than a guy who at best was the 3rd best player on his team during those finals runs. And I will get to the numbers in round 3, but I just want to let you know that 2014 finals where they beat the Heat, I don't even think he was a top 3 player on his team because Kawhi cleared him too.
All right, Swipa, it's back to you. Your time will start whenever you want it.
Yeah, again, I think if you're just going to talk like net rating and VORP and BPM and PER, we ain't trying to hear all that in a basketball debate. Who was just the overall better player when it mattered, and how consistent was that player? Because again, when you're asking like at their peak who was better, you might have an argument, but the question is who was the better sidekick? Meaning who was the better complementary player to Tim Duncan, complementary player to Manu Ginobili, complementary player to Kawhi Leonard later on in his career. It was Tony Parker because Tony was the one you knew you could rely on. In those playoffs versus those Lakers, for instance, when everybody remembers that Tim Duncan shot, Tony had made play after play versus those teams in those NBA Finals games. When the moment got toughest, he was able to respond versus Chauncey Billups, able to respond versus the Cleveland Cavaliers, able to respond versus Dwayne Wade multiple times. And so even when you're talking about as a pick and roll ball handler, again, he was consistently allowing and helping for Tim Duncan to be able to do what he did and finding the shooters on that roster, finding Danny Green and others. And again, he just had the ability to make sure that every single time they needed to get into a good set offensively, he was able to do it. But also he wasn't a distraction off the court, because we're talking about sidekick, meaning who was there, who was available. There were things that affected the game that didn't allow for Kyrie Irving to be as available because of injuries and because of other things that had nothing to do with hoops, because you're talking about somebody helping and assisting as a sidekick, the number 1 option. So Tony, again, across the board, he was just better.
You got it, Penn.
I'm thinking if I should go stats or if I should go hoops, because stats, you're right, it's no contest. It is literally no contest. 500 fewer games, and he's pretty much cleared his entire career already. So if Kyrie Irving retires right now, in his prime, he would have had a better career. No questions asked. But let's talk straight hoops, okay? Who's the better player? Are we kidding here? We're talking about he was talking about the bigger player. We're talking about the better player. We're talking about the better ball handler, the better finisher, the better shooter, he's everything. He's a better passer. He's a better defender. He has more stocks on his career. I can't believe we're having this conversation. Honestly, this is a travesty. In Kyrie Irving, we are talking about possibly one of the most, if not the most skilled point guard of all time. Now, I love that you're bringing up all the off-court stuff. You keep alluding to it, consistency and, not a distraction and all that stuff. What is Kyrie's big charge? That he thinks the earth is flat? What does that have to do with basketball? Bro, when we're talking straight hoops, when this guy's on a court, he gives him business head to head in their matchups across, I think, 18 games. Kyrie had 22 points per game on him. He put up 27 points against the greatest regular season team in the finals. Kyrie Irving is the better player. He's the better sidekick. He's the better first option, second option, third option. I don't care what you say.
Swipa round 3. Talk to us.
Yeah, I mean, again, Penn, shout out to you. We're definitely friends on this platform, but for you to say that Kyrie Irving is a better passer than Tony Parker just shows you just haven't watched a lot of Tony Parker. Again, Tony Parker, in terms of finding that pocket pass, swinging out to the corner, being the connected passer. I mean, I've really honestly just never heard Kyrie Irving talked about that. He's a decent passer. He's a good passer, but Tony was one of the best, literally one of the best of his era. And then if you're bringing up like these stats and information, like you're wanting to downplay how good he was versus the teams because you just feel like the competition wasn't good enough. But again, the fact of the matter is he was giving D Wade issues. He was giving LeBron James issues. I mean, one of the most hallmark moments everybody remembers from game 1 of the NBA Finals is him falling down on the ground and doing an up and under over LeBron James on the right wing to get the go-ahead bucket. Like, Tony had moments on moments in the NBA Finals, and he also had really good numbers throughout the playoffs, especially over the course of his prime. And even in 2014, when they did win the NBA Finals, like he averaged 18 and 5 and shot 42 from the field. And so again, when you have a player who's not somebody that was taken advantage of defensively consistently because he tried hard, he worked around screen, he knew that he had physical limitations about him, but he still allowed for himself to commit on the defensive end consistently. And you're bringing up Kyrie Irving. We just saw Kyrie Irving bottom out in the NBA Finals and couldn't help Luka Doncic at all fully healthy. And you can look if you want, but Kyrie was garbage in that Finals.
Put up the time. Run the polls. You guys get over there and vote. Don't vote based on emotion. Don't vote based on what you like or who you like or who you think is better. Vote based on who made the more compelling argument. This is the topic 2 of 3, and we need you guys to settle this topic right now in this debate. We have an all-time Nuggets team, which Swipa would take, versus an all-time Toronto Raptors team, which Penn would take. These guys will get a starting 5 and 2 bench players for players that played for both of these franchises. And it's just to make it interesting, it's players at their peak. So, Swipa, you went first. Penn, you went second last round. Swipa, you will go first this round. And oh, by the way, for round 2, it looks like Swipa took 51% of the votes to win round 2 on a live vote. But remember, it isn't the end all be all. Make sure you get your votes in after this video. The live vote isn't everything that counts. Just comment if you think the Swipa 1-2-1. Comment on that. If you think Penn swept Swipa, damn, that's a tongue twister. Penn swept Swipa, you go vote that Penn swept Swipa, and that will go towards Penn's votes. All votes matter because at the end of the regular season, we will tally them up, and that will determine seeding for the playoffs. But let's go ahead and get into it. Round 3. Or topic 3, round 1. Swipa, it's on you. Let's do it.
Yes, sir. All right. So all-time team. So we have 5 starters and we have 2 bench players coming off the bench. So my all-time team for the Denver Nuggets is going to be Chauncey Billups, Addicts Apex, around that 09-10 year when they had him and they went to the Western Conference Finals. And then he was the best player, including with the team with Carmelo Anthony and Kenyon Martin and them. Best player on that roster from round 1 to the LA Lakers series. And then I'm getting David Thompson at the 2 guard. He was one of the best scorers of his era. He was one of the best vertical spacers of his era, was a positive defender, positive shooter, especially a mid-range shooter. And I'm taking Alex English at the small forward position. He literally led the entire 1980s in scoring, a 6'8" forward for 1981 to 1989. He averaged 27, 6, and 5 on 51% from the field and 84% from the free throw line. And again, in an era dominated by a bunch of stars, he was the best scorer. I got Bobby Jones at power forward. He was literally one of the best defenders ever of all time. Bobby Jones is one of those dudes that he doesn't get enough credit because he played in the ABA and then he played with the Nuggets early on for a little bit and then he won a championship in '83. But Bobby Jones might have been the best defender for those first few years that the Nuggets had joined the NBA. And then obviously at center, I got Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the league. He's a 3-time MVP, Finals MVP. And then on the bench, I'm going to bring Fat Lever, one of the best 2-way guards of his era. And then I got Carmelo Anthony coming off the bench as well. And everybody knows who that is. That's what I got.
There you go. Penn, let's hear it. All-time Raptors team. Talk to us.
It is clear to me from listening to your list, Swipa, that you did not pay attention to the rules. It is all-time at their peak, which means you could have had Allen Iverson, my friend, and you didn't take him. You could have had 01 Allen Iverson. So I'm going to give you my all-time Toronto Raptors team. Starting at point guard, 6'8", Tracy McGrady. 02-03, Tracy McGrady. 32 points per game, Tracy McGrady. I'm going to give you my starting shooting guard. 2000-2001, Vince Carter. He's about to jump over your whole damn team because you didn't even draft Dikembe Mutombo. You crazy? No McDice, you need size to deal with this because he's going to jump over everybody. Okay? This guy led the entire league in value of a replacement in 2000, 2001. This is the backcourt that Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal said that had they stayed together, they would have been in the finals the next year, but they split apart. Not this time. At my small forward. Oh, if those are the two worst defenders on my team, by the way, and they're not bad defenders. At small forward, I got 16, 17 Kawhi Leonard right before Zaza Pachulia stepped under his foot. At power forward, I got 92, 93 Hakeem Olajuwon. This is going to be a tough, tough team to score on, even with Alex English, Carmelo Anthony, and Nikola Jokic. At center, I got 2012, 2013 Marc Gasol. And lining up my bench, I got 16, 17 Kyle Lowry and 14, 15 Chris Bosh. Eat it.
Ron, who's at the power forward again?
The dream.
Yes, Hakeem.
Okay. Oh no, my bad. I just didn't hear a pin. Ron, yeah. So basically, no spacing is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing Hakeem and I'm hearing Marc Gasol, and I'm cool. Like I guess Marc Gasol, like a decent 3-point shooter, but counting for no volume whatsoever. I think if you're going to tell me that you're going to have Jokic and Alex English, Jokic is in the conversation for GOAT offensive player ever. And so if you're putting Hakeem on him or Marc Gasol on him, then okay, cool. Whatever. Then I'm going to put Carmelo Anthony in at that 4 spot. I'm going to let Hakeem have to go drift out and cover that 4. And then we're running pick and rolls with Chauncey Billups. We're running pick and roll with Jokic. And then I got Alex English on the wing. I got Carmelo on the wing. And I got David Thompson on the wings as well. So, I mean, literally, like, you're cooked. Offensively, we can do whatever we want, get in any action that we're looking for. I think when you're talking about defenders, Hakeem obviously is a GOAT level defender, one of the best ever. I'm putting T-Mac and Vince Carter on islands consistently. I'm getting them switched on consistently. And if you think that Alex English, again, at his apex, who was giving Jordan, who was giving Magic, who was giving every Moncrief, any guard you could think about of that era, Alex English was giving them work. And again, best scorer of the 80s. He's given work to Vince and T-Mac consistently. And then Kyle Lowry, respect to you, Kyle Lowry is not Fat Lever. Fat Lever literally was he was like the first inception of Russell Westbrook. He was a very good scorer, very good passer, very good rebounder, and also a very good defender on that roster all the way around. And so if I got Fat Lever and I got Chauncey Billups as my guard rotation with David Thompson, I mean, with Jokic, it's over. It's wraps.
Go ahead, Penn. It's back on you.
This is my second one. This is number 2, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did you hear the roster that I said? Where'd you get no spacing from? I got a big who can shoot better than your big in Marc Gasol. I got Hakeem Olajuwon, who, yeah, he wasn't shooting threes back then, but the man had some range. He's not a non-shooter. I didn't put Shaq in there. I put Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon. And I love that you said Jokic is one of the greatest offensive players, if not the greatest offensive player of all time. But bro, the Defensive Player of the Year trophy is named after my guy. These guys are Finals MVPs. Now, I don't think you understand if you're talking about spacing. I think you missed the boat, Swipa, because I don't think your team is going to put up 40 points against this team. I don't care who you have on your team. You could have 4 Fat Levers, 3 Carmelo Anthonys. You could play 6-on-5. I don't think you're going to score on this team. Hakeem Olajuwon and Kawhi Leonard, Tracy McGrady. Do you understand the length of that team? And I got Marc Gasol back there. Now, I know that you said we lack spacing, so I had to check. The Chris Bosh that I referenced averaged 31 points per 100 possessions and shot 38% from 3. You might remember him in the NBA Finals splashing threes all over, right? Kyle Lowry's a 38% three-point shooter. Vince Carter's a hell of a shooter. One of the greatest three-point shooters in volume of all time. What are we talking about here? Tracy McGrady wasn't a bad shooter. I'm not saying he's a great shooter. He's not Steph Curry. He's a good shooter. I put him up there with Carmelo Anthony as a shooter. Kawhi Leonard's a hell of a shooter. Where'd this no shooting charge come from, Swiper? Please explain. Let the people know.
Round 3, Swiper. Let us know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing Hakeem Olajuwon in the starting lineup at the 4 spot, and so yeah, you put him next to Marc Gasol, then yeah, you're going to be in limited spacing, even if nobody's going to guard him out there on the other end. But then also too, like, so Marc Gasol playing high key, cool, Then Bobby Jones, I'm gonna let him take care of the business. Bobby Jones, one of the best defender, literally of his generation, might not be able to guard Hakeem, but if you're telling me he can give somebody some work, then 1,000%. And again, it don't matter who it is. If you're telling me that Yoke has offensive leaning players around him and floor spacing around him with Alex English, Carmelo, with David Thompson, with Fat, with players like Chauncey Billups. Again, offensively, they're going to do whatever they want. As you know, as soon as they put somebody in DHO, because Chauncey Billups was one of the best mid-range shooters and three-point shooters in the league for years. And on top of that, because he's a 6'4" combo two-way guard, his literal name is Mr. Big Shot. And if you put him in a situation where you're getting into a series and you need a late shot from a guard, he's even better at it than Jamal Murray is right now. And we've seen what Jamal Murray has done over the course of his playoff career. And you're telling me again, David Thompson, you're talking about vertical spacing and jumping over people. Literally, his name was Skywalker. He was Vince Carter before Vince Carter became a thing. Do you know who Michael Jordan looked up to and got an autograph from? It was David Thompson, because that's who he was. That's the kind of player that he was. And he, on top of that, was an all-NBA level player. So again, Alex English, Fat Lever, David Thompson, Chauncey Billups, I'm doing whatever I want at that guard spot. And again, you're saying you got Kawhi. Well, again, I got Alex English, and Alex English is also a better player than Kawhi Leonard. So, let's get it.
Round 3, Penn, your last case of the day. Go ahead and make it.
I know you didn't just straight cap and say Alex English is better than Kawhi Leonard. I don't think Alex English himself would tell you that. He was a coach. He was an assistant coach for the Toronto Raptors. I think he would have lost his lunch if he heard you say that. That's crazy. I'm going to take a time to victory lap. I don't care if the chat votes me on an L on this. I'm going to tell you who I left off my list, just to give you an idea of the depths and insanity of this team. I left my favorite player in the NBA, Scotty Barnes, off this list. I left two-time All-NBA Pascal Siakam off this list. I left one of the leading scorers in NBA history in DeMar DeRozan off this list. I left the guy that you left off the list too, in Marcus Camby. I left Rod freaking Strickland. I grew up watching that guy, trying to model my game after him. I left him off the list. He was 13th in MVP voting in 1999. Honorable mentions: Jalen Rose, OG Anunoby, Danielle Marshall, Serge Ibaka, Danny Green, Doug Christie, Emmanuel Quickley, Fred VanVleet. I'm not kidding. I really don't think that your team will score 40 points. If we play this by FIBA rules, physicality, I don't think you crack 10 points. This is the greatest defensive team that has ever been assembled. If you got all these players in their prime, you would run the gauntlet over the NBA for 50 years. There is absolutely nothing that compares to this other than maybe an all-time Lakers team or an all-time Celtics team or something like that. And even then, Hakeem plus Kawhi Leonard, plus the scoring backcourt of Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady, the dynamicism, the incredible point guard play of Kyle Lowry, you don't compare.
All right. Let's run the polls. Let's run the time. This was the last topic of the day. You guys get over there and comment after this video is down and it's not live, and let us know who won each topic or each debate for all of these guys that voted today, or that battle today. Salute to all of you guys. You guys got anything left to say on the way out?
Yeah, I apologize to the chat if y'all were upset about it. It wasn't personal. It's just, as I said, I told Ron yesterday, you cannot pay me to debate against Jokic. Now, I understand some people saying I just debated against Jokic. No, I didn't. I debated Raptors versus Nuggets. It's not a 1v1 thing.
No, yeah, fine. I'll take 2-1. It's all good. As long as we walk out with a dub, we lit. We moving.
All right, y'all. We will be back on the panel tomorrow morning. Be sure to pull up, and we'll catch you guys then. In the meantime, be easy. It's the player choice way. Yeah, them boys don't get it started. The player choice way. You're the player choice way. Come and switch lanes into the player choice way.